Another option that's somewhat similar to trend lines is if we right click in here and we say add reference lines, we can add reference lines and bands, distributions, and box plots. A line here is simply a line like it sounds like, so let's go ahead and take a look at what happens when we change things in here. So we can say average, we can do maximum, minimum, and other things, of course. Let's go ahead and do average on here, and notice how I now get an average line in here. The entire table and per pane matters if I have many different, for example, rows. I add another dimension into here. So I have sites, for example. If I want entire table, then it does across all sites, and if I do per pane, then it would be within each site. I can change here to minimum, maximum, median, average, sum, and other things. Computation is simply saying what is the label on the line going to be. If I say value, notice how this changes to now the value of average for purchases. I can do custom where I type in something that I want to be displayed. So there's different options here, and of course I can do formatting. If I fill above, it fills above. Another option is to do bands. So here I normally would do minimum, maximum, or some sort of constant, or I maybe go average to maximum. So I can change both the lower band and the upper band. And if I want to enclose that within the bands within with some lines, I just change the formatting. This show recalculated band. If I select some data points, notice how the bands now change. Another option is to look at distributions. Distributions work similarly, but bands are based on either some sort of constant that I add, or usually the minimum or maximum, or minimum to average or something. Distributions do some sort of calculation like variance or percentiles, for example. I can change to percentiles, so this is 95th percentile, and I can change so I can get 2 percentiles, so I can do, for example, 5th percentile to 95th percentile, and now I'm showing from 5th percentile to 95th percentile. Quantiles is just showing a number of tiles here, so this would be each decile would show here. Standard deviation is what it sounds like, so now my bands are based on standard deviation. So I could change this, for example, to 2. So now it's 2 standard deviation above the average and 2 standard deviation below the average. As with the other ones, I can change to use the entire table or per pane. I can also change the formatting. I can change the label and do other things to it. One nice thing about this distribution with 2 standard deviation is that if I have some sort of process that's supposed to generate data or values around some sort of mean with some sort of normal distribution around that. For example, if I have some business process that generates sales, then maybe I would expect those sales to sometimes be a little bit above the average, sometimes be a little bit below the average. By using one of these charts, I can detect the deviations from the average that appear somewhat abnormal. These kind of charts are often termed control charts. One problem with the control chart in data like this is that I have some sort of upward trend. So I would kind of expect the data points to actually exceed 2 standard deviations when I get up to here. So maybe this value, it looks a little bit high, but maybe it's not that abnormally high. So I can do a number of things here to try to correct for this. One is to try to take out this slope by, for example, doing a quick table calculation. Maybe calculate percent difference instead. So now I'm looking at percent difference, and that I should probably not expect to change too much. So now one can see that these are kind of odd looking. Another thing I could maybe do is to say, okay, if I at least segment these in by year, so I get different standard deviations for each year, I take away some of this upward slope. So for example, I can add transaction data onto here and then use year. So now I get different averages and different standard deviation per pane.